Hello, welcome back to 9 Leicester Carols for Curious People, or welcome for the first time if you've not seen it before. It was a show that we did on the 12th and 13th of December 2020, a 25-hour live show broadcast across the world with guests from 7 continents. And the guests you're going to see in this section include Kiri Pritchard-McLean, Charlie George. We also have an episode of An Uncanny Hour, which is a kind of spin-off conversation from the documentary series we do about horror, which includes people like Stuart Lee and Alan Moore on that, and Reece Shearsmith, many more. Go and look up our it's very hard. An Uncanny Hour. It doesn't trip off the tongue, but it looks quite good on the page. That's the reason that we chose that. And also on top of that, we have some robotic jazz. I hope you like what you see.
And now, I think I can go straight on with you're not doing anything. You're 20-minute time. We're going to have some... for those who don't know, by the way, basically, Steve has now got his musical instruments connected in a way which means that the band are able to play them from a distance, but it will, when the drummer starts, it will be that drum that works. So this is... it's much like having a poltergeist. It's going to be very exciting. And now we have a stand-up set. It's 11:25. Thank you very much, everyone, for staying with us there. Thank you very much for those of you who came down for this as well, because we are beginning, I think, now to feel the need for other energy as well, don't we?
I'm sort of surviving at the moment. I think I'm due a crash in about 2 hours, I think, but at the moment I'm sort of...
Crash during the jazz section.
Perfect.
And then just fall on the keyboards and everyone will see you as inventive rather than snoozy. So it'll be absolutely fine. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to your screen, wherever you are, Charlie George.
Hi, welcome to my room. Just a bit of light reading about power there. Lovely to see you. I am Charlie George, and a lot of people like to ask me, were you named after the famous Arsenal football player, Charlie George? And I go, oh yes, funnily enough, I was, yeah. He's really famous in both Asia and Swindon. If you don't know who the real Charlie George is, he's an Arsenal football player who scored the winning goal in the FA Cup final in 1971. Yeah. I once got hit in the face with a football in a car park in 1997, so, loads in common. Also, the real Charlie George, right, he started with hair and ended up bald, which is exactly the same as me, but in reverse. I do get quite a lot of issues with my name. Sometimes I turn up for an interview, and after seeing my CV, the potential employer will actually say to me, we're expecting a man. And I have to say, join the queue. My dad's still sobbing into a rugby ball at the maternity ward, and I'm a fully grown woman. I'm a WOC, which is not a wrestling style. I'm not great with labels, I'll be honest. It's not that they're not helpful. I do find, right, that if you tell someone they're a minority enough, they will feel inferior to you. It's just that they're also quite limiting, aren't they? Because I'm so much more than just a working class queer woman of colour. I'm also really annoying and pretentious. I'm technically a mixed other, which is basically shorthand for saying, I got all the worst parts of my ancestors. Got the addictive tendencies of my alcoholic Scottish grandfather, an irrational fear of chewing gum from my Singaporean family, and the propensity to marry my cousins from my Indian grandparents. Just kidding. I don't believe in marriage or cousins. I also got the inability to admit guilt or apologise with any sincerity from my white English mother. And if you don't like this set this evening, I'm really sorry that you feel like that. If you don't know where Swindon is, right, it's this little town in Wiltshire that was named after some pigs on a hill. And it's probably most famous for a roundabout that's magic, yeah. Because all the millennials that grow up there repeatedly return, going round and round in concentric circles of unemployment before getting kicked back out again on the M4 to Bristol. I would have loved to have been from Bristol. So, yeah. It's made entirely of ketamine. Streets lined with MDMA. I think you always have a complex relationship with the town you grew up in, don't you? Because it holds all of your shame, doesn't it? Yeah. Like a phone party. Remember those? What was that about? You're going out clubbing for the first time, full of hooch and hormones, you're sort of sidestepping self-consciously on the dance floor, thinking, do you know what would make this night better? Yeah, someone just ran a hose through here and fired some sort of cheap washing up liquid at us all, providing both camouflage and lubricant as we rub up against each other until we inevitably fall over and get a rash. Yeah. Everything I've ever learnt, right, was written inside a cock on the back of a desk. And that's because I went to comprehensive school. I was raised on the worst kind of leadership imaginable. We've experienced that kind of leadership recently, right? The making decisions in a crisis leadership that really opened the curtain, revealing that the great and powerful Oz is just some old dude pressing buttons, frantically going through the manual, trying not to kill everyone. In year 9, I remember walking over to the stationery cupboard unlocking the door and finding our history teacher hiding in a ball, crying. A man who couldn't conquer teenagers was trying to teach us about the Empire. I walked over to him. I looked him in the eye and I said, "Sir, you cannot show fear." And it worked. He lasted another term before checking into a facility. I actually went to 2 schools, because I'm a bit of a wrong-un. First one got shut down and is an academy now, which we all know is a good sign. And then I went to a slightly more upmarket one. You can tell if a school is a bit more upmarket, can't you, right? Like if all of the students are forced to wear a tie, like a pretend businessman. You even learn how to make it really short and tight, don't you? Presumably for your inevitable suicide whilst working in the city. Now I'm in the arts, right? I'm surrounded by a lot of people who've had liberal middle-class upbringings, you know, like Cambridge and Oxford graduates, which isn't a bad thing. You know, you can't blame people for being posh. I know it's the sort of done thing. And I used to do it too. I used to look at wealthy people and just see red trousers. Assume the worst, you know, just the ease of their lives. But hey, look, you know, if you're alive with the awareness that you and everyone you love is going to die, does it really matter how much polo you play in between? I don't think there's that big a difference between comprehensive school and private school. You know, you just come away with slightly different skill sets, don't you? Just slightly, you know, they learn entitlement from hanging off the side of a yacht in the south of France, presumably patronising migrants. I don't know. And we develop empathy by supporting our teachers through a nervous breakdown on the ferry to the Isle of Wight. Yeah, those were the days. I don't actually mind going back to Swindon that much anymore because I've got a beautiful niece and nephew, or as I like to call them, the womb gremlins. I am available for children's parties. No, seriously, I am. Kids are great, aren't they? You know, they give you hope, they remind you to lighten up and play. I always tell my niece and nephew, right, whenever I go back, I say, it doesn't matter what anyone says, you know, it doesn't matter who you are, who you love, the colour of your skin, how attractive or how clever you are, or how much money you have, you know. People will always find a way to hate you. So learn a martial art. Yeah. I chose Capoeira myself. Yeah, got pretty hard into Capoeira, or as I like to call it, Brazilian Tinder. You know, instead of swiping right, just go around in a circle, aggressively kicking at the object of your affection while someone plays the tambourine. I just want to go out with you, Pedro. I also grew up Jehovah's Witness because, hey, Swindon wasn't enough. And do we have any witnesses in, any believers in the house? Yeah, they're never in, are they? Never in. Well, it's been about 15 years since I've last prophesied the end of days. I did nearly relapse this year, what with bushfires, locust swarms and a global disease. I'm sad to say I very nearly knocked on the doors of all of my housemates and asked them to repent their sins. We have very thin walls here, and I can confirm there has been a lot of sin. Familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses, you may have hid from us when we came knocking on your door. It's a branch of Christian evangelism. And we were forced to do that. Yep. Most parents teach their children about the danger of strangers. I was sent out in a skirt, hoping to be lured into their homes. I did break away from that life, and as a result, I have quite a lot of self-loathing about who I am as a person. Thank you, Jesus. Still haven't figured out what my sexuality is. I think I'm probably pansexual/bisexual. But you can't say that where I'm from, because that's like saying you like Oasis and Blur. No one believes you. pick a team. It's war. I don't know why people are so obsessed with gender. It's not the genitals that make the relationship, is it? It's the deep-rooted personality flaws and fear of dying alone. I can't be relied upon to make rational or consistent choices with my genitals. I mean, who could? Who could safely stand next to their sexual history and say, yes, this is a reflection of who I am and my best choices? Sexual history is like internet history, it throws up a lot of questions and you don't want to live them all out. Let's face it, if your sexual history reflected who you were, it would be drunk, missed the last bus, depressed at a wedding buffet. Big clear energy, guys. I've actually started this new meditation practice recently. I really recommend it. Basically, you take a deep breath in and then you turn to face every corner of your room whilst screaming. My housemates have asked me to move out, but I feel more centered. Look, it's a shame that we can't be together in person, and I can't do my usual ending for you, where I just sort of strip naked and crowd surf whilst you chant my name. Maybe next time. But I'll leave you with this.
Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie George. My first coffee of the show. I've waited. I didn't quite make 12 hours, but it's delicious. You should try it. Have you had coffee before?
I had one coffee earlier, and it worked a treat.
It's very nice. It's a very nice drink. I don't know if anyone out there's ever had coffee before, but it's a real pick-me-up, it turns out. We're going to get straight on with the next person. Just a reminder as well, questions for Tim Minchin. If you'd like to ask Tim Minchin something, send us your questions. 9 lessons, hashtag 9lessons24. We'll get that. Also, neuroscientist David Eagleman, who's fantastic, and if you've got any questions about the brain and the mind, his workbooks like Incognito and his book of short stories, Some, is fantastic as well. Really highly recommend that. And also questions for Dr. Carl, which can basically be about anything, because Dr. Carl has definitely written more books than he's had years on this earth, and I think possibly by about a factor of 3 as well. So Dr. Carl, you just throw anything at him and we'll find out what comes out of his head, which is always fantastic. So now, please welcome to the screen you're at. She's live. We're going to have a little bit of a chat afterwards. But first of all, here is Kiri Pritchard-McLean.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I hope you're okay. I can't tell if it's my screen or not, but it looks like Robin has half a beard. Is that correct?
Yes, what happened was I started, because I'd not really taken the mask off for a while, and then I took the mask off, and I thought, I need to shave. And then we haven't really had any long breaks, so I managed to get the first half done. And then with Josie, we're going to start doing kind of double acts together, where we do the whole, the old male, female music hall act. So Josie and me are going to develop that, where for a moment she'll be the kind of bearded man and I will be the smooth person, and then we'll swap round.
Beautiful. Well, I'm here for that. Absolutely. Also, this is very strange to me. I'm one of those people. I've never had coffee. I'm not a hot drink person, and but living in the north for 15 years, when people are like, "Oh, do you want a brew?" and you're like, "Oh, I don't drink hot drinks." They clearly look at you like you just said, "Oh yeah, I'm a sexual predator who preys on children in particular." So I always get very nervous when people start chatting coffee around me. I'm waiting for the day to come that I enjoy it. I've started pretending I like green tea, so I have something to say to people when they offer me a hot drink.
Well, immediately it makes you, in some people's eyes, a fascinating eccentric. And there's one of my favourite things. I wish I could remember who it was. She's brilliant. We did a show at one of the festivals where people did something that they'd never done before. And one of the people, I think she was 34 years old, or maybe a bit younger, maybe 32, and she'd never drunk milk. And she agreed to. And can you imagine being 32 years old? And because if you've not bothered till then, and the look on her face, the disgust of this kind of going down, it was a delight.
Oh God! Well, I went vegan about 3 years ago, but I'm one of those like my need to please is higher than my like morality level. So I went to a cafe in Brecon with the wonderful Henry Widdicombe, who puts on McKinley and things like that. And I went into the cafe to order some food, and I said, "Do you have anything vegan?" And she went, "Oh, we've got a lovely quiche." And I said, "Oh no, I can't have eggs and I can't have cheese." And she went, "Oh no, we got a pasta that's tomato and basil." I was like, "Perfect, I'll have that." And when it got there was loads of cheese on the top, but I wasn't going to be like, "Excuse me." So I was like, "I'll just eat it, it's fine." And then I think I made myself lactose intolerant because I went to the toilet and I needed there to be an exorcism afterwards. What happened in there was the most distressing thing that I felt I was completely passive to for, I'd say, sort of between 6 and 10 minutes. So I think that we become lactose intolerant really quickly. That is my theory, but I'll leave the science to your other friends.
No, I think you might be right. But that's an interesting thing, because I've had that thing before where you order something vegan, then it turns out there's meat in it. But there's a kind of presumption that because meat isn't in the words, that's the main element. But we haven't mentioned the ham element of it. Yeah, but that's not. It's the ham element. No. But we haven't mentioned the ham. So it's just you can have it. It's a secret because you want to eat the ham, don't you? No. I think the worst, I'll warn you about this, when I was in Belfast in a bed and breakfast where a really lovely woman ran it, and she came down in that very proud way, "I presume you'll have the full Irish," and it's like, "Oh God, I'm going to have to reject this." And I said, "Oh look, is it okay, do you have anything vegetarian?" She went, "Oh, you want our special vegetarian breakfast?" Like, well, yes. And it turned out it was basically every different form of bread. So soda bread, potato bread, just every brown bread, every bread you can imagine, lava bread. And then it was 12 hours before the gig, but my centre of gravity had changed. I thought I can't perform. The pull of the earth is too... And I was just like walking around the dodgiest parts of Belfast in a hope that it would create an expulsion at some point in my body.
So basically, people that night just paid to watch a man slowly digest on stage. That's what it was.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've eaten many breads. Now you must watch.
I'm so sorry. I should be cracking on. I've got some Christmas stuff to talk about. I should explain the things behind me. I've got some like Christmas bunting. It's sort of Victorian cartoon of a cat holding Christmas pudding. And I feel like I need to clarify this because my partner and I have just started the process of fostering. So we've been doing some online Zoom training about it. And sort of day 3 on this, the woman who's running the course said, "Can I just ask, Kiri, what is it on the wall behind you? Is it rats tied together by their tails?" And I was like, "No. And if you think it's that, don't let us have any children." So I would like to clarify that this is just cats. This is just classic Victorian cats carrying a Christmas pudding. I'm really excited about the prospect of fostering. Really, really excited. I think initially we wanted to adopt, and I think that still might be on the cards. But at the moment, we're gonna do fostering because there's a greater need for that at the moment. Adoption's an interesting thing because I just worry about every aspect of being a parent. I worry about how many children to have. It's a conversation I had with my mother. She said, "How many kids are you going to have then if you adopt?" And I said, "Right, well, I want 1, but I'm going to have 4." And she was like, "Talk me through your process there." I said, "Well, it's all about doing what's right, isn't it? So I want 1 because that's the most amount of time and resources that you can give is to one child. But I know they find it difficult to adopt out sets of siblings. So the right thing to do is to adopt 3 or 4. But I think I only want 1. And she said, "Kiri, just have the 1 child." I said, "But it's not the right thing to do." And she said, "I'll let you into a little secret, Kiri. You have all your magical moments with that first child, and it gets progressively more boring after that." That's what my mother said to me. Yeah. And just for some extra context, I am the youngest of 3 children. Explain something of the driving force behind me wanting to do stand-up comedy. I've decided how I'm going to start. I'm going to make it someone else's decision how many children we end up having. The social worker will be involved, and I've decided to say to my social worker, "Give me as many children as it physically looks like I've had." That's what I've decided. Like, make my body finally match up to my lifestyle. And I don't think that's the easiest question because my body sends out mixed messages. I think my boobs, they look like I've had children, 2 specifically, with a big age gap. I think my gut says sort of I think about 4 children, all with a natural birth. None of them were straightforward. And my eyes, especially after a very long lockdown and a few glasses of wine, my eyes say that I'm running an orphanage in a developing country. So it's up to them how many children that they eventually entrust with me. My parents were very, very strict when I was growing up, very strict. As I said, I'm the youngest of 3. I got 2 big brothers, and they were amazing. My brothers raised me quite a bit. My parents were very busy out working on the farm. And I loved my big brothers so much. I'm going to tell you a Christmas story now about how much I love my big brothers. And this Christmas story, I hope there's no young people watching, because this is a story where I'm going to talk about that thing to do with Father Christmas. So if there's any young ears, eyes, let's get them out of the way, because I'm going to talk about the Father Christmas thing. Okay, that's your warning shot. I obviously haven't made it sound so euphemistic that it's like me being like, I'm blowing the case wide open, guys, Santa's a pedo. That's obviously not what it is, but that would be a perfect end to 2020. It would be like, oh yeah, there's no heroes left. So this is how I found out that there was no such thing as Father Christmas. I was 6 years old, which I think is very young, and I was making a little list for Santa Claus. We were drawing these cards in school, and this to put our lists in, and this boy came up to me, he's in my class at school, and he said, there's no such thing as Father Christmas, and it's just your mum and dad pretending so they can buy you presents. And I went, of course I know there's no such thing as Father Christmas, and of course I know it's my mum and dad just pretending so they can buy me presents. Miss, can I please go to the toilet, please? And I went to the toilet, and I cried my 6-year-old little heart out, because up until that moment, that's the worst thing that had ever happened to me, and I was utterly destroyed. And the reason I was getting so upset is because I have these very strict parents at home, and I convinced myself that if they knew that I knew, Christmas would be cancelled for my big brothers, and I would ruin Christmas for the 2 boys, and I loved them so much. I didn't want that to happen. So I was getting really, I sort of had to do this kind of crying in the toilet. You know, when you sound like a wobble board. So crying on one of those tiny toilets that you don't realise are tiny until you go back to do something in your school, and you're like, I've had mushrooms before coming here. So I'm sat on this tiny toilet, getting really upset, and then I came up with a plan in my 6-year-old little brain that I was going to go home and I was going to pretend that I still believed, and if I pretended hard enough and believed it enough myself, then Christmas wouldn't be cancelled, it would go ahead, and my brothers would have the Christmas that they deserved. So I went out of the toilet and I splashed my face with water to hide that I'd been crying. You learn that very young as a woman. So I hid the tears, went back to the classroom, and I just pretended that I still believed, right, all day in school. And then my mum and dad came and picked me up after school, and I pretended that I believed, and I kept it up. And Christmas went ahead that year. Christmas wasn't cancelled. And I kept that up for 10 years. I was 16 years old. It's December. And my mother says, Kiri, can you come in here, please? We need to have a word with you. I went, it's fine, Mum. We're already doing it and we're being safe. And she said, not that, we can hear you through the walls. Come and take a seat, please. So I sit down on the sofa, and both my parents are stood opposite me, which is how I know I'm going to get a bollocking, right? And she looked at me and she said, it's about Father Christmas. And I'm 6 years old again. And I immediately start welling up. And my chin betrays me because it starts trembling. So I've got a trembling chin, and I'm stood there, and my eyes are full of tears. And she looked at me and she goes, do you know? And this decade of stress of having this around with me just comes bubbling up inside me, and I burst into tears, and I go, I'm so sorry, I've known this since I was 6. And my dad went, oh, thank fuck, we thought it was a problem with your IQ, which is absolutely brilliant. And then also, I ran upstairs in tears. I heard my parents having an argument through the floor, which my father signed off with, don't start with me, Beverly, because I know you dropped her as well. So that's something else from my dad. My dad is one of those people, he's, in terms of, I'm very interested in true crime. In terms of murderers, there's a thing when people are trying to sort of frame a crime, it's called overselling. And my father does that with every Christmas present, because he's yet to knowingly partake in buying Christmas presents, right? My mum does everything, and then she goes, that's for you to give to Kiri, right? And my dad can't just take that graciously. There's too much of the showman about him. So I remember opening this, my mum got me this lovely coat, and there was a scarf to go with it from my father. So I opened this scarf up and I said, you know what, Dad, this is lovely, thank you so much. And he couldn't go, you're welcome, darling, I'm glad you like it. he had to oversell it. he said, I knew you would love that. Didn't I tell you, Beverly, that I knew she would love that scarf? And I was like, here he goes. And the scene that he paints out, so he says, I walked into a shop and there was a beam of light naturally falling through the window. And it crossed this shop and it fell onto this scarf. And I thought to myself, well, that looks beautiful in the light. That is a special scarf for a special lady. I can see my mum's face. She's zoned out already. She's probably heard him rehearsing this in the mirror to himself. And I said, that's the scarf I should get Kitty. And your mother said, I'm not sure. And I said, Beverly, I know my own daughter. And he said, and I went up to the scarf and I picked it up carefully in my hands and I took it to the till and I said, how much is this? And they said, it's not for sale. And I said, I'm not leaving here until you let me buy that scarf. And that's the scarf that you're holding in your hands now. And I was like, right, okay, you absolutely massive bullshitter. But that is not even the best present he ever got me. And he tried to upsell this as well. It didn't work. I bought a house and when I was quite young. And the follow-up that Christmas was he bought me a write-your-own will kit from W.H. Smith. So that was money well spent because I've yet to use it. Because it feels like a direct threat when it's coming from a member of your own family, one of the principal beneficiaries of said will. Well, I just wanted to tell you about my dad at Christmas, and I think we're up to speed. Is that right? That was
great. That brought back lovely memories of the fact that my dad used to write clues on the gift tags for my mum and would not allow her to open it till she'd guessed properly, right? Go, no, of course it's not a scarf. Read it again. It was like being with a kind of very aggressive Ted Rogers on 3-2. Well, of course it's not a bin, is it? Who's got these idiots in here? It was. I love those. I think people are really going to miss those special moments in the social distance Christmas. Thank you so much for joining us, and you do so much great work as well. There's been so many wonderful things that you've been doing during lockdown. So thank you very much for that as well. And hopefully we'll end up gigging together again when these kind of things are over and we're actually all back in the same room as well. So thank you very much, Kiri. Ladies and gentlemen, Kiri Pritchard-McLean.
Bye. Bye, guys.
And now, because it's nearly the witching hour, it means it's jazz time. So are you going to do your robots?
Yeah, so jazz might be stretching it. I mean, even more than it is usually for me. But yeah, we're going to do some robots if that's all right.
Is this going to be part of the number one single, or is this a separate
maybe.
issue?
TBC. Well, I've got lots of great contributions. I'm making a song, and I haven't really started yet because I've been waiting for the contributions to come in. But after this set, from midnight, I figure 12 hours is enough, right? So we've got lots of nice contributions in from people. If people still want to contribute, I realise it's quite late. Do send them in to 9lessons@cosmicshambles.com, and I'm going to try and mix some of the contributions into a song, make them in C major. You can just, having you singing a scale might be nice, just because I can then chop it up and things, or even just you shouting Christmas, because we're not allowed to do that here,
anything you want to just record and just kind of, that would be absolutely fantastic.
That'd be lovely. And also a title for the song would be great. We've got a lot of Brexit and COVID themed titles at the moment, which I want to make it a bit more jolly.
A bit less dystopian.
Right? Yeah.
No, that's fair enough.
Let's,
less J.G. Ballard on the jazz.
Yeah, more hope than that, I think.
And I just mentioned before Steve does it, a reminder that also if you have questions we've got Tim Minchin coming up very, very soon, and we've also got David Eagleman, so questions about neuroscience, Dr. Carl, and also Bruce Hood and Kier-La Janisse, who are going to be next up after Steve. We're going to be doing a whole thing about Christmas horror films as well, the best Christmas horror films, and so anything you're interested in asking about that as well. As I mentioned before, Bruce has written brilliant psychology books, neuroscience books, and Kier-La wrote a fantastic book called House of Psychotic Women, which is great as well. And ladies and gentlemen, I will now hand you over to Steve Pretty.
Right. So for those of you who are just tuning in, or for this new live audio, you've been here for a little while, but I'm just going to re-explain what we're doing here. So I have this slightly crazy setup of robotic bells, a robotic piano, robotic jingle bells, and all sorts of other stuff here on the stage. Now, I also have my band, who obviously can't join me here, unfortunately. Oh no, I'm losing the live audience just as my bit goes. Not to worry. So I've got my band who are remote, and they will be controlling the instruments in this room from their various destinations. Now, unfortunately, we've lost one band member because he's had to go to bed. But have we got the others up? It'd be nice to say hello. There they are. So there's Ben. How you doing, Ben? Can you hear us?
fine, thanks. Yeah. Having a nice evening.
Yeah, having a nice evening. You've been watching the show, or?
Yeah, I've been dipping in and out. I had to catch up with Have I Got News for You, which I missed yesterday. And I saw the Christmas Carol.
Lovely stuff.
Great.
Excellent. So Ben, where are you? You're in Letchworth, right?
Letchworth Garden City.
Yeah. Can you just give us a little test of your drums, so we can hear what's happening here? Lovely. So just to be clear, when Ben's hitting those pads, just hit the kick drum pad. Yeah. Now hit the snare. Now hit the hi-hat. Bingo! Fantastic. Okay, so that is Ben in Letchworth playing a live drum kit in this room. Steve, how you doing? Steve Thompson.
Hello, mate. Yeah, I think I lost you for a minute then, but can you hear me now?
Yeah, got you.
Right.
So all good there, mate?
I think so. I don't know. This is the name of the game with this, isn't it? We don't know until we
Yeah,
start
well, let's
it,
find out.
yeah.
So we've lost one band member, so very kindly Steve has stepped in and is doing both the bells and the robot piano. So, Steve, can you just give us a little test?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Lovely stuff. Yeah, there's the piano playing itself. Lovely, thank you for that shot. And we've got the bells. Just give us some of the upper bells, Steve. Up a bit. A bit higher. So this is the first time we've done this since we lost Jeff. There you go. So they're the lower ones. Fine. Okay, no worries. Okay, great. This is a bit of an experiment, even more than usual, because we are down.
So not where I thought they would be, but there we go. Okay.
Is that all right? You all right? Oh, we lost you again. Okay, we are going to give a couple of Christmas tunes a go. We thought we should use this internet robot technology to play some Christmas carols. So we're going to start with Jingle Bells. We seem to have lost Steve's picture, which is... Can we get Geoffrey Chaucer up? No. Okay, well, we can give this a go, because I think, all being well, Steve should still have the connection to the robots and stuff, even if we can't see him. So, let me see. Let me just stop this. Ben, are you ready? We've lost them both. Wow, we've lost the audience, and we've lost the band, and Robin.
Sorry, no, I am here. I was muted.
Okay, right. Are you ready, Ben? I know we've lost Steve,
ready.
but let's see what happens. Let's see if Steve joins us magically through the medium of robotics.
Yeah.
All right. But the thing about this is that I wanted to be able to play live in some form and have some real noises coming from real instruments in this room, and also to sort of look at new ways of collaborating in this weird time that aren't just Zoom gigs. Fun those Zoom gigs are. This is a sort of slightly more live version. Right. Let's give it a go. So again, second time ever that this has been attempted. I think possibly in the world, and possibly with very good reason. Here we go. Let's play Jingle Bells. Hold on a sec. We're missing Steve. So let's just pause it there. Trent, is there any way we can get Steve back? Because at the moment it's just me and a robot drummer. Trent. We got any chance of getting Steve back? Ooh. Oh, thank you. Great. He's working on it. All right. So Ben, do you want to just give us can you give us a hip hop beat just by yourself, if you can hear me? Just give us a bit of hip hop. All right, ramp up the tempo. All right, okay. All right, can you give us a bit of drum and bass? Faster. Oh, there it is. Can you give us a bit of swing? It's a bit tricky with just 3 drums, but you did a manful job. Okay, what else have you got? Bossa Nova. There it is, lovely stuff. Steve, we've got you back.
Yay!
Okay, great. Okay, let's give that another go. Are we all good?
I don't know. What was the thing that we were just giving a go?
We're going to do Jingle Bells. Yeah?
Let's do Jingle Bells.
Yeah, okay. So you guys go on mute. Here we go. Live experimentation in the name of science? Art? Question. Actually, this is technically art, because very kindly the Arts Council, I applied for some Arts Council money to try and make some of this work, and I was given some. So this is courtesy partly of the Arts Council. So thank you very much. Here we go. Art. Okay. All right. Okay. It's very hard to stop the band. They're not very well cued. All right. That's nice effort, guys. I got a bit out with you there. It may have been my fault. But it was something. Also, these guys can hear each other, but they can't hear me playing. That's the only way that this works logistically. So let's try Carol of the Bells. Let's try something even trickier. Why not? Yeah, it's just not a lovely bit of tuning. Steve, thank you. How's this? Let me just. How's that tempo for everyone? Are you happy with that? Up. All right. Okay. No, we're going to have to stick there for now. Let's try it. Here we go. Let's try it. You good? Oh, hold on a sec. Sorry, that's in 4. It's in 4. So now we're trying to change the time signature. Nothing. You know what? Let's just. No. Great. The laptop's frozen. We've reached the witching hour, and the laptop's frozen, and Steve and Ben can't hear me, and you sort of can.
I'll just do it in. I can count it in 3.
Why don't you just if you just play it, Ben. Maybe we can do it without the.
Yeah, I'm going to get rid of the click because that's in 4.
I'll just give you 2 3s. 1 2 3 1 2 3. Is that right?
Yeah. Go for it. Well, that just happened, whatever that was. Bit of fun. Well done, guys. Thank you. I think you're clear for the night. You can go to the bar. I'll see you in the bar afterwards, yeah? Thank you very much. That's Ben in Letchworth playing the drums in King's Place, and Steve in Kent having a cup of tea and playing the piano and bells from Kent. So
I had no idea what I was playing.
But that was lovely. Thanks very much, guys. It's been a fun.
Cheers. See you later.
Stevie.
Have a good night.
See you later, buddy.
Thank you very much to Steve Pretty and the band. Now we are, for everyone who's at home, that was the last audience that we had with us. They were not driven out by robotic jazz. There are the reasons that there was a certain point where everyone has to leave due to various bits of whatever it is, COVID stuff and all that kind of things. We are now, Steve and I, basically in an empty theatre. We have lovely tech crew with us, and we have that haunting phase of a horror movie, which is why I've done my change. I've had while you were doing that, I did my
shirt again.
Well, not just changing the shirt. I did that proper stopover at Singapore, toothbrush, change the socks, the whole kit and caboodle. I am now in, because what we're going to do next is we started doing during lockdown a series called An Uncanny Hour, which are kind of proper documentaries that we've been making about not just horror movies, sometimes horror movies. We did one about David Cronenberg's The Brood, and we had people like Josh Cohen, who's a fantastic Freudian therapist, and we had Charlie Higson on, and we had Cindy Hines, who plays Candy in the film, and we did one all about Hawkwind as well, which Hawkwind in the 1970s, we had Stuart Lee and Alan Moore and lots of others on that. And the first one we did, God, you know what, I can't even remember what the first one is we did, but we've done the first one was Dead of Night, the Ealing classic, and we've got a load more of those. The reason we normally at this time, pretty much, when in fact the day before, there would be a new Uncanny Hour, and there is one coming out very soon about the fantastic TV play Pender's Fen. So that's one of the things that we've been doing. So I am now in my T-shirt for this point, for post-midnight, is Silver Shamrock. Do you know what Silver Shamrock is? Right, it's from Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Very, I think, underrated Halloween. It's a non-Michael Myers film, originally based on a script, an idea by Nigel Neal, but then John Carpenter and him didn't really see eye to eye. And it is about a malevolent toy manufacturer with connections to the kind of the old world and the magic of the old world, who makes a collection of Halloween masks, which once placed on, and you hear the Halloween is coming soon, coming soon, coming soon. Halloween is coming soon, Silver Shamrock. Watch, watch, watch the magic lantern. Watch, watch. Eventually that will make snakes appear in their head and kill them.
Wow.
It's excellent.
Sleep well, everyone.
Yeah, sleep well with your Silver Shamrock masks. So we are now going to be joined by two people who are great horror fans, one of whom has I didn't even know about I know he did spooky things sometimes in his psychology classes, but I did not know that he was also a huge horror fan. On Instagram, he keeps putting up the most wonderful posters of some films that I think would desperate to be B movies, but don't manage to kind of reach that high. And also someone I've mentioned a few times already before, who is involved with, has done a wonderful recent documentary with Severin Films about portmanteau horror films, and also has written one of my favourite ever books about horror movies and our relationship with them, which is called House of Psychotic Women. So welcome to your screens at home, Kier-La Janisse and Bruce Hood.
Hi there.
Hello, both of you. How are you doing?
Hello.
I've just moved over. So we are here. What time is it with you, Kayla?
4 p.m.
4 p.m. So you're fine. So we're just turned midnight here. Steve and I have been on stage for about 13 hours so far. So and we've just moved to the stage of having an empty auditorium. So it's kind of quite spooky. Bruce, you are, I presume, midnight like us.
Yes, indeed. It's a witching hour, and I've been dropping in and out, watching all that. I'm really impressed, and I'm just wondering how your mind is at the moment. It must be fairly frazzled.
No, I saved having my first coffee for 12 hours. I'm in such a great state, but let's find out how long that caffeine works. Now, I wanted to talk about, because you've written as well, Kayla, about Christmas horror movies. And I think when people think of Christmas horror movies, well, I would first of all, the first one I always go to is something like Black Christmas with Keir Dullea. And what would you say for you is the first Christmas horror movie?
I mean, to me, the best one is that one, is Black Christmas. But do you mean the first one that I remember seeing?
That
or
first
the first
moment of what, yeah, that first moment of thinking how they've brought Christmas and horror together.
I'm trying to think. I mean, because I am Canadian, I'm guessing it probably is Black Christmas. You know, like Black Christmas probably is that foundational movie for me because it plays on Canadian television constantly, you know, and it's one of our proud moments.
And I mean, for those who don't know it, it kind of does, it comes before what would then be the whole slasher genre. I mean, it does seem to be one of the early kind of sorority horrors.
Yeah, it's about 6 years before Halloween. And I think it's about 8 years before When a Stranger Calls, which has a similar kind of device in it. And yeah, so it's often cited as being a bit of an outlier in the slasher world, like kind of a proto slasher, because it's got a big chunk of time in between that and when the slasher films were really proliferating.
And Bruce, what was your introduction to? I mean, obviously there were, M.R. James horror stories were kind of part of my childhood. But what were the parts?
Yeah.
What were your childhood introduction to Christmas and horror?
Well, I remember anything that's got snow in it. if it's a horror movie, it's got snow in it, then I think it's a Christmas horror movie. So I count The Thing and The Shining. But I guess I would have to say A Christmas Carol. When I saw that, it was a bit spooky and scary. And I thought the version that was done last year on the BBC by Guy Pearce, who was on earlier in the show this evening, that was really good special effects. So, I grew up with horror movies, and they influenced me and my career ever since.
I think that's it. The interesting, like Alistair Sim in the version of Scrooge from I think about 1951. There's something about Alistair Sim, that smile. He's also in Inspector Calls. There's a moment where he's in a rocking chair just smiling, and he has those eyes, which I think are very interesting. And I don't know about Caleb. Sometimes there's that intriguing thing where an actor can have eyes which either give an eccentric friendliness, but with a very slight turn becomes something like a kind of uncanny valley terror about them.
Yeah. It's funny because recently when we were doing that movie, Tales of the Uncanny, which you mentioned, the portmanteau anthology documentary, everybody kept talking about that episode of From Beyond the Grave with Donald Pleasance and Angela Pleasance together, and how their eyes both being in the same movie was like too much, because it was like too much weirdness, coming from people's eyes in one frame. But just like going back to what Bruce was talking about, I mean, Christmas Carol movies, adaptations were also a big part of my childhood, I'd say too, so like the Richard Williams animated one, which is still one of my favorite versions because it's got it's got a lot of the sort of typical kid style character design or whatever, but then it's got these very expressive moments of horror, where the animation gets much more rough and, and it's got the characters of ignorance and want, the two like emaciated children that are underneath the robes of I think it's the Ghost of Christmas Present. And those characters don't appear in a lot of different adaptations of the Christmas Carol. So it's got some very, very creepy moments in it. And also the WKRP in Cincinnati version of A Christmas Carol is really good too.
Oh, I don't know that. Who played Scrooge in that?
Mr. Carlson.
Oh, so is that Howard Hesseman?
No, Mr. Carlson is Gordon Jump. He's like the head of the radio station, and he accidentally eats some of Dr. Johnny Fever's hash brownies and then hallucinates that various different employees from the radio station are the different ghosts, and his nightmare vision of the future is that Herb Tarlick is the only employee left at WKRP, and it's a completely automated radio station, which of course is what happened to radio within a few years of that. So it's kind of prophetic.
See, I have to admit, I am a big fan of Scrooged, the Bill Murray movie. Yeah. Which, of course, has a link with When a Stranger Calls as well. The violent fairy in that. And you have all but I love that film. But I want to talk a bit, Bruce, with you about ghosts. Now we're on to Christmas ghosts. As someone who's looked at what we do find unsettling, and we do find there are certain things. It's often not the most grotesque image. It's not the image that disgusts us, that haunts us. It's something else. What's your kind of research in terms of what are those things that truly unsettle people in horror tales?
Yeah, I think when I've looked at the psychology of magical thinking and supernatural beliefs and the fascination, I think that those examples which violate assumptions or what we consider natural, which don't go too far into the realms of fantasy, if they seem close enough to home that they could be possibly true, I think those are the ones which are most unsettling, which, of course, is it's interesting, coincidentally, that you call your show the Uncanny Half Hour, because there is this term you've heard, I'm sure, the Uncanny Valley, which is that there is this repugnance at robots or artificial intelligence which seem almost human, and they're not quite human, but it's that close approximation which people find most unsettling. So I think that the monsters which really stick with us are not necessarily the most gruesome, it's the ones which are possible, and I think that's why they really stick with us.
Yeah, so the scariest thing, my sister Sarah used to do this thing, which all she did was just get really starey eyes and not react to me and then just walk towards me. And it freaked me out so much. It wasn't a scare, it wasn't a leap or whatever, but I feel that she has, both from perhaps a Freudian and Jungian perspective, destroyed the rest of my life. I thought what might be fun is, now you've got a bunch of posters there, which I think you've kind of screened. And Kayla, I thought Bruce has this huge collection of posters of films, which I, even as a fan of the kind of psychotronic area of movies, I look and I go, I have no idea. I've not even heard of the lead actor. So I thought it would be fun to... Now, this one, we start off quite nicely. Curse of the Demon, which is also known as Night of the Demon in the UK. I think Curse of the Demon in the US.
Right.
Now, that is an interesting one, isn't it, Caleb? Because there is a story where a lot of people say about that the mistake was that you ultimately see the demon.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, I agree. I feel like it's on screen too much, and I feel like it's also the image that people tend to use when they're advertising the film or talking about the film. Like, it's kind of like on the posters, and it's like, so it's not only is it in the film too much, but it's kind of there it is right on the poster, you know. So it's like it's kind of blown for anybody who's going to watch it anyways, just from the advertisements, you know. But I feel like the just the story and the Julian Carswell character and stuff like that, I mean, that to me is the creepy stuff, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And as you're right, they famously fell out over it because Al Chester, he inserted it into the film without telling the others really effectively. And the film works really, really well because it's really you know, is there really any evidence for it? It's about a psychologist, which I think, upon reflection, is maybe one of the reasons I actually ended up becoming a psychologist, because this is my favorite film and this is my favorite poster, and I have the original, but it's too big to show on a screen. But anyway, the reason the film works so well is that the audience, if they hadn't shown the monster at the beginning, could have been left with some sort of question about whether or not the supernatural was real or not. And so I agree. I think it was a shame that they actually had them. They put the thing in there. But, yeah, it's a classic. It's never been remade. There's been a lot of arguments, a lot of attempts to remake it, or attempts to acquire the rights.
But it's based on Casting the Runes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Casting the Runes.
So Casting the Runes has been adapted multiple times. So even though the movie hasn't been directly remade, but different versions of Casting the Runes exist.
Okay.
There's there's a TV version of it, a TV play, which I think would probably be late 70s, which has one of those wonderful things. I forget who's Ian Cuthbertson plays the kind of Carswell character, and it has that great bit. You know, when sometimes someone goes, "Oh my God, I've just realised we haven't got time to explain everything. Let's just have a character who wanders in and goes, "Oh, hello, Bob. You're the news agent. What are you doing here?" "Well, I should tell you, there's some very weird things going on down my street. Thank you very much for that information." And you go, "Why did he even?" "Oh yeah, I realised there was a point where he went, we are not able to condense anymore." I love those moments of kind of horror film. What is your job? "I am here to explain," and then ride back on my penny farthing. Now, let's have a look at that. So the next one, Atom Age Vampire. Now that's not so. Kayla, do you know Atom Age Vampire?
No.
Give us the tagline for those who can't quite see the tagline. Bruce, what's the tagline on that one?
It says, "Before your very eyes, the terrifying transformation of man into monster." It's an Italian film, I believe. And, well, like a lot of these posters, even though the artwork is outstanding, quite often the films are quite atrociously bad. And I was told, I don't know if this is true, maybe Kier-La can correct me on this, is that very often the budgets weren't that good for making the film, but they would put a lot of effort into the marketing, because that's what drew the audiences in. So a lot of my posters are visually very beautiful, but not necessarily good films. Here's another one you might be aware of, Tormented.
Oh, Richard Carlson. So that's got a big name in it, at least.
Yeah.
Now, that's an interesting thing. Has there been a movie? Which one? Because I think there are quite a few horror movies where, as Bruce said, always play the version that you created in your head when you first saw the artwork. Never see the real film. Is there any where you just, that you really regret thinking, I had imagined such a movie, and then I realised all the money had been spent on the paints that were used for the poster?
I'm trying to think. I mean, like ones that I can think of where the poster is just completely different from the movie. I wouldn't say I was necessarily disappointed in the movie, but something like Let's Scare Jessica to Death. I feel like the poster for that, which is an amazing poster, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the movie itself. And it's, kind of, a misleading poster. But in terms of one where I just imagined a better movie in my head, God, I don't know.
Let's get Jessica to Death. Which one's there? What's that, Bruce?
Well, this is because I also have more science-y fiction related ones as well. But this is a truly appalling film that I managed to find online. But the poster I really, really liked. And I was looking, which year is this one? This one is 1962. And it's sort of a comedy where they find these alien vixens, according to the tagline, which is a bit strange. This is another one I haven't... Oh, of course, this is a fantastic...
well, that's a great movie.
Yeah. And I've actually got...
we should again say that Burn Witch Burn, for people at home thinking which one's that, who might know it by the other title, which was the UK title Night of the Eagle, which has the wonderful... Anyone who was watching early on when we were doing some of our kind of daily lockdown shows, Josie and me, there was an auction of everything that Peter Wingard, star of that movie, had ever owned. It included some of his toupees. It included boxes of his receipts, just so you could own some receipts that Peter Wingard had. It had a VHS tape of a poor sitcom that he'd been on. It was just incredible. And I was with Mark Gatiss, and we were both going, we mustn't look anymore, because otherwise I'm going to wake up and go, how much costume jewellery did I buy?
I was going to say, I actually sent him. These are the publicity materials. I actually sent Peter Wingard one of them for his autograph before he died, and he never sent it back, the bastard. But anyway, I've got here's a insert. Now these are small enough to show you, and they're made of cardboard. They're more robust than my posters. My posters are made of paper. That's why I didn't bring them out. Some of them are 70, 80 years old. But this one is cardboard, and this is, I like it says recommended as adult entertainment for Burn Witch Burn. But again, another film about psychologists and his
or like skepticism versus, the old beliefs and witchcraft and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that's ironically something I went into professionally.
So that is Keller. So you're a fan of Night of the Eagle?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So can you give us a little bit, for those who don't know it, because it's a wonderful, again, I would say that fits into the uncanny, and it does fit very much into the kind of Night of the Demon feel of the uncertainty of reality, just the loose grip that we might have on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically Peter Wingard plays a professor at this school, and his wife, like unbeknownst to him, is a witch. She's been practicing witchcraft, and she's been practicing witchcraft to help him in his position at the school, to protect him and help him get promotions and things. And he's like a complete skeptic, so he not only talks openly about how, these things are ridiculous and we're rational and scientific and, but he teaches these things as well, so it's like the fact that his wife is practicing witchcraft is completely at odds with his core beliefs. And then he finds out that she's practicing witchcraft and makes her vow to stop. But then all these horrible things start happening to him, and he has to realize how much his wife's power has been actually protecting him.
So it's basically, it's like the TV pilot movie version of Bewitched. And then they go, hang on a minute, let's not go down the melodrama route quite so much. We should get on to Christmas movies because we haven't got that long. So I would like to know from both of you, in terms of Christmas horrors that you think people might not know about, which are, because there are some really kind of grotesque and fun and weird ones. And I forget that, I don't know why it always slips my mind. I think I emailed one of you about it, that Finnish movie about the kind of wild Father Christmases.
Rare Export.
Rare Exports is... If out there, if you've not seen it, I promise you, watch it this Christmas, because it's one of those films, I don't know if you'd agree, it's a film of about 4 different genres. So you keep thinking you're in, okay, it's going to be a kind of sad film about a guy dealing with, okay, it's a kind of funny film. Oh, God, it's a really scary, creepy film, but with skinny hobo Father Christmases. There's so much going on in it.
Yeah, and that one is very much based on... it's like the older European mythology of like Yuli Puki, which is like the Yule goat, which is what it's like the pre-Santa character in Finland and in some of the Nordic countries. And so they sort of take this idea of this old Santa, this old like punishing Santa, the kind of Santa that you'll see in a lot of European mythology, these sort of punishing characters that, they won't just leave coal in your stocking, they'll like kidnap and kill you and stuff. If you've been rotten all year, and so they've buried the Santa, the Yuli Puki, in this big mountain, and so some seismic investigators have come and they're trying to dig it out, and all hell breaks loose, of course. But it's also just set in this really interesting environment in the Lapland in northern Finland, where it's very sparsely populated, and the people there are really struggling to make ends meet over Christmas, which is also like one of these really common Christmas tropes, like the idea that you can't afford Christmas. So yeah, it has a lot of things going on where it's like tapping these older mythologies, but then also making a lot of commentary about the commercialization of Christmas and all the financial demands of Christmas and stuff. So it's very fun, and it's got like a kid who's the hero. And like lots of great horror stuff, imagery, lots of great action imagery. Like it's a very entertaining movie.
I think, as you were mentioning there as well, there's that great thing which we see in the work of people like Marina Warner and in the work of Angela Carter, which is taking some of these myths that have become Disneyfied and just been turned into very clean, nice stories and going, here is the version. It's when you think of stories like The Little Mermaid and you actually know the original version of that. It's not, there's far fewer songs, there's far less happiness, there's far more pain. And I think that's something like Rare Exports. It plays and shows us that far more. What about for you, Bruce, in terms of a Christmas horror movie that as you've said, you kind of loosen it, anything with snow counts. So you've really broadened the genre there.
Anything is bleak. So one of my favorite films of all time, it's not really a horror movie, but I think it's sort of, it is horrific in the way that this man, Joseph Merrick, by the way, his name was never John Merrick, but Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man. It's shot, this David Lynch film is shot, it's very bleak, it's very industrial, it just reminds me of the winter and cold. And I'm sure it's not actually all shot in the winter months, but it's a film that, again, anything that's got snow or cold reminds me of Christmas. And what I love about this film is it's just this way that we treat freaks, as they were known at the time. They were objects of interest, and there were all these touring shows. And I think the Elephant Man is a really poignant film about our attitudes to those who don't conform. And so in many ways, it works on so many levels for me. And again, I have lots of original materials for that as well. Great film. One of my favorites.
Man, that is there's a scene which I'm sure many of you will know, and it is, I would say, of all the movies that I've watched more than probably 20 times, that is the one that will most often still make me cry. There's about 3 moments, and the scene where, yea, though I walk through the valley of death, and then the moment that Anthony Hopkins, Mr. Cargom, and that moment is every single time. Can you imagine what he's seen? Yes, I think I can.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you can. And that is, in fact, I did a terrible thing during lockdown, which was, I didn't realise, I thought it's only a PG, The Elephant Man, so I thought I'd show it to my 12-year-old son because it's such a classic film. It is so psychologically bruising. The emotion in it is so, what a great film. Kayla, what about for you if you would choose one Christmas movie?
It's kind of weird because I mean, outside of the classic ones, because I've seen a lot of them many times, but one that I feel, it's not even a movie, it's an episode of a show, but I really love the Christmas episode of The Avengers in the 4th season called Too Many Santas. And it starts with like a horrible nightmare that John Steed is having, that's got this like creepy cardboard Santa, and like one of his colleagues is found dead. And then he gets invited to like this Dickens themed Christmas party out in the country, and all the characters get assigned different costumes of various Dickens characters. And there's this whole like mind control plot going on. It's got all these like hallucinations and dreams and things like that around like Christmas imagery. It's really, really good.
I think The Avengers it's an interesting one that it's now fortunately repeated on TV a lot. Talking about uncanny, it has a different kind of sense of uncanny where I think one of the reasons certain 60s TV shows, and that in particular, are still, and The Prisoner, I would say, they create a world that is not attached to time, even though stylistically there are certain things that it could only have been made in that decade. It creates a world that is so rich and both otherworldly and yet just connected enough to us that we can believe it as well.
I was terrified by the thing that chases him in that big bubble. That was a childhood nightmare for me. Was I never really knew what it was.
Rover. It was just that was the whole thing. That's an interesting thing for both of you. I'm going to ask about that strange moment where, if you ever see, as you see in Rover with The Prisoner, where the latex presses against the face and you're left with a sense of a face, but you can't see any of the details. That's a very disconcerting thing. We see that occasionally in horror films, and a lot more often in something like The Prisoner.
Yeah.
So that is what for you are the. Again, thinking it doesn't have to be Christmas movies, but from the perspective of horror movies generally, what are the things where you actually have that strange, almost that childish excitement of knowing you're going to be going in for a horror ride? There are certain movies that you walk in, you go, I'm right, and you grip the seat a little bit tightly because, I actually found Ghost Stories, the Jeremy Dyson and Andy Nyman movie, which I thought was tremendously disconcerting, and I saw it alone in an old cinema, and with that added to it as well, and I did do that bit where I kept my body like that all the time, so the projectionist never saw that I was actually jumping every now and again because I've stayed rigid. And those, so I wonder, what for both of you, I'll ask you individually, what are the movies where you just go, I'm going to have to stay rigid so I don't give away the fact that I've just jumped out of the seat? Bruce?
Well, okay. I think I am a big fan of both versions of The Fly. And I also both versions of The Thing. I remember as a child both seeing the earliest versions. They stuck with me, and then when they came out and I was a young man, I was very excited about going to see those. And I really love Cronenberg's work, and so yeah, those are the films that I really was looking forward to. And Alien, actually, I have to say as well. Alien was and I still love Alien. It still gets me each time.
I think Alien I think those jumps all still work. However much, I think there is something about the claustrophobia of that, as people have called it before, kind of haunted house movie, really. Killer, what about for you? What are the ones that you can still do that? So it doesn't have to be, that bit where you go, this still has the power to disconcert.
Well, The Changeling, I would say, is one. The Changeling I still find incredibly creepy, even if I just think about it when I'm by myself. I can scare myself thinking about it. Things like The Haunting of Julia. I would say, often it's ghost movies. So like ghosts, as you were saying before, Bruce, like the fact that we believe that they could exist, is the kind of thing that makes us more afraid of that kind of imagery. But so definitely like The Changeling, The Haunting of Julia. When I first discovered like the ghost stories for Christmas and all the British TV stuff, like the British Christmas stuff that is not set at Christmas. It doesn't have anything, the plots don't have anything to do with Christmas, but the kind of stuff that would be programmed at Christmas in the UK, all of that stuff, like just the Lawrence Gordon Clark ghost stories for Christmas, how some of them were just like actually shot by candlelight and stuff, I mean, it's like the colors and the grain and everything in those films, especially if you're coming from Canada and it's like new stuff to you. Like, I didn't grow up with those films. So discovering them for the first time about a decade ago, I was able to just dive into this whole world and get this experience as though I was a child again, because all of this kind of imagery was new to me. And so I got to have that feeling again of like being a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old watching stuff on TV, because the way that these television films were made is just stylistically so different from a lot of stuff that would have been made in Canada or America, for example, and so so I love all of those. I got to be in the UK once for one of the live ones. Like, I got to be in Christmas or on Christmas Eve, like in the UK, and actually experience on the BBC, like the Christmas ghost story that they were playing that year. And it was just a really special experience, and something I get very jealous of when I think of all my British friends who got to grow up with this tradition.
Yeah, they don't get shown enough. They're so great. This is just a final question, which is, I was thinking one of the things that is spooky, and I never actually know why, and one of you might have the answer, is that child, like sometimes just a child at the top of the stairs, just looking slightly kind of as if not quite connected to the world, or just children singing for some reason, just the holly and the ivy. That can be really creepy. Bruce, starting with you, because obviously you've studied some of as a psychologist, what is it about us that disconcerts the seemingly vaguely possessed child?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a research area there, but I think it's this juxtaposition between the familiar and what should be safe, and then realizing maybe it's not as you seem, and giving them adult-like kind of abilities is something which jars with our sense of innocence. So I think it's a violation of expectancy, or that violation of your concept of what it is to be a child is what's so disturbing.
Brilliant. And Kier-La, is there anything you would add to that in terms of...
I mean, I would just say, following on that, I think that's one of the reasons why Christmas horror movies work so much, is because there's all these expectations about Christmas as a holiday of being like this time of safety and family and all this nice sentiment or whatever, and horror films just like love to subvert that idea as much as they can by having like horrible things happen, incredibly dysfunctional, violent families, and like a lot of disruption to those kinds of ideas. So I think that, like whenever we have expectations of safety, that's when things can get really creepy.
I think apparently I was just going to say, Robin. Apparently, I was just reading the Montague James, M.R. James. Apparently, he was one of the people that introduced this Christmas ghost tradition. So, and the BBC picked up on that. So, we've come full circle in many ways.
Yeah. Thank you so much, both of you. We will go and look for both the work. As I said, House of Psychotic Women is one of my favourite books about horror. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and hopefully, I know obviously it showed at Abattoir. Hopefully, also the portmanteau. I've totally forgotten that, and it is Tales of the Uncanny, isn't it?
Tales of the Uncanny.
Tales of the Uncanny. And Bruce, your latest book is Possessed. Is that out in paperback, or is it still in hardback at the moment?
It is, yes, it is. But there are no ghosts in that one, I'm afraid. It's just about our obsession with possessions.
Yeah, if you are getting it to get something about a poltergeist, you will be disappointed. If you want to get something about psychology and understanding our need to possess things, which is not necessarily other people's souls, in fact, it doesn't cover the possession of other people's souls, that is great as well. Thank you both very much, and hopefully see you in the new year. So,
thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going to go, as I said, for those of you who just joined us, Steve and I have been on stage now for 13 hours. We're doing fine. We're doing okay. And just a reminder that we've got various crowdfunders going on. The show that we've been doing is kind of to make up for what normally are the live theatre shows we do, which we make money for various charities. On this particular occasion, the charities we're making money for are Mind, the mental health charity, Turn to Us, which is to help people in poverty and financial difficulties, and Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, which is an incredible charity, and also the King's Place musical charity as well. So all of those, and also if you can support us via Patreon, that's fantastic. We're still trying to make somewhere between 4 and 10 shows a week, and that will be brilliant.
Thanks very much for watching. Thank you very much to everyone who supports us via Patreon, because that's how we manage to make all the shows. So if you are able to support us via Patreon and you don't already, it would be wonderful if you go to patreon.com now. We are the Cosmic Shambles Network. Thank you.